Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, it's guns over pistols in the tidiest little 17-point win you'll ever see. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On at Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, and these days every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs is helping you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, man. The terms and conditions that applied to the ball game last night, greatly pleasing to us as the Red Raiders down the Cowboys of Oklahoma State and look plenty good doing it. 90-73, the final score. When you and I yesterday morning were talking about the line somewhere 7.5, 8.5, something like that, I was a little startled by that. We kind of talked about how that was fairly big number for Big 12 basketball. And as I talked about in my infinite wisdom yesterday, how important it was to get off to a fast start in order to put yourself in a successful position, that was all thrown out the window. As you tip things off, you didn't get off to all that fast of a start, but eventually you took the reins and you didn't let them go. Another lead established and a lead extended. And at the end of the night, you wind up safely covering that number as a 17-point winner, man. There was a whole lot of good on the floor at United Supermarkets Arena last night.
Winning is fun. You've kind of forgotten what it felt like. You know, you want to remember or remind everybody. You know, you're 2 games into your conference season. One, still a long way to go. 16 games in this conference season left to go, but you're already almost halfway to what you accomplished last year in the conference season from a win total when you only had 5, and you feel like you're just getting started. That's but I think you remember the pace of play conversations whenever we got those, you know, and you know, I was at various speaking engagements that Grant was at, and he would talk like it bothered him. I think I think it bothered him because it was used against them in recruiting when you're trying to bring in portal guys or trying to recruit high school guys. You know, they were kind of hearing feedback that, well, everybody's telling me that you're going to do this, and I mean, boy, has he just thumbed his nose or a middle finger or whatever you want to, you know, to that thought process, because, 90 points, man. I mean, it's been a while since you've been able to be this efficient, and we'll get into the efficiency part of this deal because it is wild. You know, Oklahoma State, I think, I was trying to look that up to be sure before I said it, but I think Oklahoma State had only given up they'd only given up 70 points or more, I believe, twice on the season, maybe 3 times. But you get what I'm saying. I mean, you like kind of blew that out of the water. And that's Mike Boynton's calling card. You know, that's what he hangs his hat on, is defense. And they have a McDonald's All-American and Brandon Garrison that was down low, that had 4 blocks against Baylor and that was rebounding like crazy, and he was just kind of a non-factor, you know. And so I don't know, man. I just was very impressed with what you were able to accomplish here. Most importantly is winning. And I think while Grant would probably disagree with what I'm about to say at some level, I think you mostly controlled the game and won it in commanding fashion. I think that there were points in the second half where you kind of were trying to do the whole hang on to the lead and extend it and couldn't quite do it. And Oklahoma State would hit a 3 or you'd foul them. They'd make a 3 on a 4-point play. There was just some, you know, again, these teams are good, man. I mean, in Oklahoma State, they're going to continue to get better. They're playing a ton of freshmen. So the next time you see them in Stillwater, probably going to be a bit of a different task going against these guys in their building. But on this night, you were quite a bit better.
You could not really paint a prettier box score if you tried to in your wildest basketball imagination, and we'll get to some of the tidiest aspects of it coming up in just a moment. But, I mean, the shooting percentages are just insane to consider, especially given what some of our expectations might have been coming into the season. I remember early on, talking about Coach McCaslin referencing the fact that he believed he had a team that could shoot the basketball. We're kind of wondering, like, okay, well, can they or can they not? Are they going to be streaky? Is it going to be up? Is it going to be down? Still plenty of basketball left to be played to determine what you are for the season overall, but it's unbelievable to see a 59% from the field night, 54% from beyond the arc, 7 for 13. You already used the word efficient. I think we'll probably use it again as we move through this conversation, man. But as you get through, let's see here, 5 double-digit scores led by 24 from Pop Isaacs, it's really blowing me away to see how he's brought them together as a team. And you mentioned it in your post-game reaction video last night, the way that you're sharing the basketball and 17 assists on the night on 35 made buckets. I mean, that is now a characteristic. It's not just a flash in the pan or this game or that game. This is happening repeatedly. And in this day and age where you're bringing typically so many new pieces together and trying to melt them together and establish this kind of chemistry, and we've been in this, kind of process or this experience for several years now through the Beard era and into Mark Adams and now into Grant McCaslin. And I don't guess I've seen anybody do it better than Coach McCaslin so far. And while those other guys have got some accolades, obviously a national runner-up, you got a Sweet 16 under Mark Adams. We'll see what they can do if they get to the postseason. But the way that this team plays together is really just a sight to behold in a pretty short amount of time, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the task with coaches these days, is that with year-to-year teams and so many new pieces each and every year, and not having a ton of program guys like, okay, well, they've been in the program and now it's their turn. They know what we want and what the expectations are. No, it's the whole speed dating, thought process there, where you try to the quicker you figure it out, the better off you are. And sometimes it just takes coaches and teams and the chemistry to it takes a bit, I mean, Beard's the Final Four run, that particular team, you didn't really figure it out until mid to late January. And once you did, I mean, you were a nightmare. I mean, I think you won 9 in a row to finish the season. Then you went to the Big 12 tournament and got kicked by West Virginia. And then you never lost again until that Monday night at the end of into that one against in Minneapolis against Virginia. But I think what the 17 assists to 4 turnover part of this game is wild to me. I mean, it is so difficult to do. There's so many moving pieces. It takes everybody kind of in being in sync and being smart, and which is, and again, mind you, we just have stated all these new pieces, that haven't played a ton of ball together. It's wild. And I think you credit Grant. I think you credit Pop and Joe. You credit Dave Smart. You just credit there. And you mentioned the shooting part of it. They're shooting it extremely well right now. Not just wasn't a one-night deal, but you remember in several of these first home games, they shot it very poorly.
Yeah.
And he would talk about it. It just wasn't, Pop wasn't shooting it great. The team in general wasn't shooting it great, and we'd come and do these things. And it's like, man, you're supposed to be a better, and I think, but we just kept saying, this is a good shooting team. You have to stick with it. And now, not that you're on the other side or anything, but I think you see kind of, and what Grant would tell you is, it's because we're such a good shooting team because we're getting good shots, and it's because of the ball movement. I mean, like, here's the stat within the stat sheet that, like, this is kind of like
first Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And if you've got a small business looking to hire new employees, you're hoping for the biggest pool of top-tier candidates possible. And that's exactly why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has all the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free, all on one easy-to-use and secure platform. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They've got a far-reaching network of more than 1 billion professionals, and hiring the best becomes easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within only 24 hours. With all the hats you wear as a business owner, the time or resources to hire quality candidates can be hard to come by, but LinkedIn carries the load for you with the quick, easy, and intuitive process. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply.
Here's the stat within the stat sheet that, like, this is kind of like Warren Washington had more assists than Pop Isaacs. Pop Isaacs had more rebounds than Warren Washington. None of that makes any sense at all. But that's what the beauty of this team playing together, because you're seeing guys like Darian Williams and Warren Washington, you know, finding the right open guy and not trying to force it and all those kinds of things. And that's what is beautiful. I mean, like, you look at a lot of the open threes, it was Warren Washington that's kicking it out, or it's your two bigs that are facilitating. It's not a guard penetrating into the lane and kicking out. No, it's an offensive rebound, or it's like a post up, and then here comes the double team and boom. And then Chance McMillan or Kerwin Walton or whoever, or Pop Isaacs, making those threes. So it's just, I don't know. It is a lot of fun. And like, when I saw that, I was like, man, that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Because this is the second game in the last 3 or 4 that Warren Washington has had 5 assists. This isn't his game really, but maybe it's starting to become that. And Grant is, I think, squeezing as much as he can out of this group, but he's making these kids the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, Warren Washington, I think it was in the first half, had one of the best looks of the night. I think it was somebody slashing to the basket, and I can't remember who it was on the receiving end.
Kerwin Walton down the baseline.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, wait, was that the 7-footer that just made that dish? But yeah, that was amazing. That one really stuck out, and great night for Darian Williams, 14 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. And let's get to something that you've already mentioned there, but the 4 turnovers. I mean, Oklahoma State only turns it over 9 times. You know, it was a pretty clean game all the way around, but here's the new name for Grant McCaslin. It is Mr. Clean, because it's spick and span. There's no question about that. 4 turnovers. And I wanted to ask you, Chris, how's he doing this? And I'm glad to hear that you asked him, how are you doing this, in your post-game conversation with him? Because, again, this is not just a flash in the pan or a really good night. And we saw some big turnover numbers earlier in the year. I think there was a 17 within the last month or so in that very building. But the characteristic, again, is more so a very clean basketball team. And, man, to the tune of only 4 last night. That's amazing. And what did you hear from Coach McCaslin whenever you had that conversation with him about that?
Yeah, you could theoretically have a goal of, like, man, we need to play, 5 or less 2 turnover halves, and try to keep it below 10 in total. And that's still extremely difficult to do. But I sat down, and I'm like, 17 assists, 4 turnovers. And I'm just like, look up, I'm like, how are you doing? I'm like, there's got to be some sort of secret sauce. Right. I think you're dealing with a mature team. I think you're also dealing with an egoless team. And that's maybe the key. Okay, so the basketball part of it, their spacing is really good. I credit, you can credit Grant or Dave Smart or Matt Breyer or Luke Barnwell or AC, whoever you want to, gets credit for, just kind of, because they are very well spaced out. The ball doesn't, it rarely sticks. You don't come down in a possession and go, man, it's just kind of stagnant right now, or man, this is just too much one-on-one. That really hasn't happened. It's pretty easy on the eyes, and I think with that, they do a good job of moving without the ball, which is what you saw there with the Kerwin Walton baseline cut earlier. I mean, when's the last time like last year, did you credit him with movement without the ball?
He was Daria to me. Like,
well,
it's just
yeah.
He's a totally different dude.
Yes. And again, it's about being the best version of yourself. It almost sounds like corny, and you hear coaches say that all the time, but that's what coaching is. I mean, coaching is trying to squeeze what you can out of a player with what they have been given, and then turning up the volume with some of these aspects of what they are capable of, and then taking them out of their comfort zone. I also witnessed this last night, and I'll get back to the assist and turnover things last night, but like Warren Washington, I think semi-tail end of the game, maybe 8 to 6 minutes left in this deal. It's still somewhat hanging in the balance. He kept looking over there and going like, hey, man, I need a blow. Like, give me a break. Give me out. And like, it's like nobody was paying attention to him on purpose. They were like going to ignore him. Okay, so then you get you get a whistle, and he literally comes over. He's like, Coach, man, I mean, I really need to. And like I think Grant actually looked at one of the other guys on the team and started coaching him or whatever, but he just totally didn't. And so what I took from that, because I've seen this happen in football before, he's pushing him past further than he thinks he could play or that he could handle. And these are extended minutes for some of these guys. And I think he's creating some character there. And like, Warren Washington is now capable of playing harder for longer periods maybe than he's normally used to, when maybe previously it's like, hey, yeah, we'll get somebody to come in for you. Robert Jennings, I think, has shown that he can come in, but they didn't want that at this time. No, Warren, like, let's be tough. Let's push it. Let's, and that could have backfired too, but I just think that's kind of what Grant is doing with some of these guys. As you mentioned, different guy, because I think Warren is also a different player as well than he has been at his other stops. I think people will tell you that. But the assist to turnover thing, and I bring up Warren a lot just because I think when he's got the 5 assists, it's just fascinating. He's a 7-footer, man. And he's certified dime dropper. I mean, like, he's just, and it helps when your teammates make shots.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's not an assist. So that needs to be stated as well. But yeah, spacing, unselfishness, coaching, guys making shots. I mean, all of it kind of in that blender, and it equals 17-4, man. So
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it is wild to me.
He's going Arvydas Sabonis on us. I mean, we're going to see something behind the head next. I don't know what we're going to see. And yeah, you're reminding me of that TV show Surviving the Cut, where it's all about like SEAL training and this military special forces training, to where they take them to a point they probably, or I would say guaranteed, didn't believe they could go to. And this is a much different conversation. It's just a round ball you're trying to put through a net, but it's the same principle, isn't it? I mean, you're taking them to a point that maybe they wouldn't have believed prior to that they could get to, but now they understand they can to a degree. So I don't know, man. Coach McCaslin is hitting all the right buttons and pulling all the right levers, it seems like, right now, and will need to continue to do so as Kansas State comes to town this weekend.
Yeah, and we I saw this, obviously Houston got welcomed to the Big 12 last night. Yeah, I mean, hey, trust me, Hilton Coliseum on a Tuesday night, and I want to tell you there was several inches of snow out in Ames. I was told that yesterday. Speaking of, Oklahoma State didn't even get into Lubbock, I think because of the same snowstorm. They didn't get to Lubbock until yesterday, the day of the game. They couldn't fly in the night before and all those things. So, that the winter months in that Midwest, and whenever you go there, there's something about it. But yeah, Hilton Coliseum on a Tuesday or Wednesday night when Iowa State's coming off of a loss. Good luck. Seen that movie before. I think I think the last 2 times I've been to Ames. Now, granted, that's where you won a part of the Big 12 championship about 3 or 4 years ago. So I do have some good memories there. But I want to say it was last year. Didn't you lose by like 30 or 40?
We've got some bad memories there as well.
Yeah, it was like 82-50, and I'm like,
Some nights it's the only heated building in town. Literally, people are just trying to find heat, and they just leave it on there so they can get them in. But, yeah, that's nothing new, right? It's something new to Houston as they've been going through this paper row in the other conference, but not anymore.
It's a grind. I mean, it's the game to game, and, you get teams that come off of a loss, and it's like, and that's what you were worried about with Oklahoma State last night, and you're down 20-11, and you're like, uh-oh, and like Texas bounces back against Cincinnati. After Cincinnati beat BYU, here BYU was ranked 12th in the country. Now they start out the Big 12 0-2. And hey, Danny Salee, he didn't take a car or any money to go to BYU. I mean,
he's just being mean now.
He took a basketball team 0-2 to start out the league is what he took. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
I should have never told you that listener was upset.
I'm just playing. It's like that's like ingrained now with the whole BYU thought process. But Kansas State, to your point, rolls in here on Saturday. And they're also 2-0, and that will be a tough game. They're going to be more talented than Oklahoma State was, and then obviously Grant McCasland will see his former best player Tyler Perry on the other side, the Player of the Year in that league, and on Grant's team last year, going against him, which is very fascinating. Is a unique sidebar there.
Let's get to – we're going to make a hard switch here, but you want to talk about unique sidebars. I want to get to a football conversation before we get out of here. And, of course, we got plenty of time left this week to set the table for the Red Raiders and the Purple Wildcats on Saturday. We'll get back around to it. But we'll recall a conversation we had yesterday and some new additions for the Texas Tech football program to wrap up our conversation today. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And football is close to wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. So many ways to spice up the action with FanDuel's safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. Are you really even parlaying if you're not visiting FanDuel's Parlay Hub? I doubt it. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon today. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/lockedon, official partner of the NFL. I don't know if this is lost on some folks. I could certainly understand if it is. It was somewhat lost on me at the beginning when we're talking about some of these different additions to the program and the two most recent additions to the program and how they come to be Red Raiders. And Chris, this is a walk-on conversation that we're having here, but it's not your typical walk-on conversation, very much a unique situation. I don't know if it's playing out this way for other programs across the country, if this has really been specific to Texas Tech and maybe just a few others, but these ain't your granddaddy's walk-ons, I guess is what we could say at this point in time. And I don't know, man, you and I remember like a year ago or maybe longer than that, when we really first began doing this show, having a conversation about the Matador Club and some of the things that you're doing with your walk-ons and the number of guys on the roster that were going to potentially be in line for this and that. And I kind of thought, okay, does that give you a better back end of the roster? Like, can you attract better walk-ons? But I was still thinking just in the context of walk-ons, like not a former 4-star or this former 4-star. And how are these conversations developing? And do you really think that Texas Tech has been kind of unique as far as, making some hay and getting some really talented guys in this category to become Red Raiders?
I love the what you have on the screen there. Walk this way. It's like Run DMC, and they also have a song, My Adidas, and I'm thinking, man, there's some synergy. There's some synergy rolling here. I know I'm wearing the Under Armour thing today, just for limited time only, man. It's got a shelf life. Gotta get it going. Yeah, it's well documented. The Matador Club, and some of these other, I don't know whether it be collectives or whatever. It's well documented. Like, hey, it's not a secret in Lubbock that 120 football players can be a part of the NIL program with the Matador Club and the community service and all that comes with that. It's well documented that it's harder and harder for the general high school prospect to be able to walk on at college programs these days because of what you're talking about here. You know, back in the 80s and 90s, or I guess it was more 80s, when Tom Osborne was at Nebraska and they were rolling, their walk-on program was legendary because it created more depth on their team. They had legitimate football players that extended past their scholarship limit, and it was a huge benefit. And in terms of this, the reason that you're bringing this up is because Javion Wilcox and Jason Llewellyn, the two additions yesterday, or over the weekend, I should say, the tight end and the defensive back, they've walked on to Texas Tech. They're not on scholarship. And I think there's always the thought process of, hey, come here and earn it. Like, you can eventually get placed on scholarship and all that. But what the collectives or the NIL, when it's that well documented that that's the way the program works at whatever school you want to talk about, I guess you could theoretically take that money or whatever and apply it toward tuition. And so it's like you're kind of on scholarship or something. I think there's, but my point is, like, let me list off the names for you here that you've added to your roster in the last 18 months that are theoretically walk-ons. They're not on scholarship. I mean, you remember what a big deal it was to get AJ McCarty last year from Baylor.
Yeah.
And he was going to be a starter for the Bears. I think he's got a chance to start for you or be a heavy rotational piece. He's still, I believe, theoretically a walk-on. Dalton Merriman, who's probably a name, shame on me that we haven't mentioned enough from an offensive tackle standpoint. He or your saddleback, addition from the junior college ranks that you just signed at mid-year here are going to be two of the tallest, rangiest offensive tackles that you have on your team. And I think, they could mix in Ty Buchanan. That could be, where your tackle depth and starters come from. But Dalton Merriman was a walk-on at mid-year or in the summer last year, in the May period, I believe, out of a junior college, I think Blinn Junior College. And so he's walked on. I think you think about like Miles Thompson, who was part of the recruiting class a year ago, turned down Division I scholarships to walk on here. He's one of the fastest guys on your team. Terrell Tillman, who came here from University of Oregon, who plays some, he was a tight end at Oregon. You're using him kind of as an outside linebacker, maybe an edge guy. He was a heavy special teams contributor this year. He's a walk-on. And then your quarterback that you just added here in its semester, and Cameron Brown, also a walk-on right now. So, and then the Wilcox and the Llewellyn additions. But I mean, it's not just the depth of your roster. It's mostly unprecedented, but this is kind of the way the sport is now. At least it can be. I don't think everybody is afforded this, luxury or benefit or whatever to be able to have this kind of depth. But Texas Tech using it as such, and that's why it's harder for some kid from West Texas to hey, man, I think I just want to show up and go through spring and walk on. Well, I mean, you've got dudes that are not on scholarship, like bona fide 4-star prospects that, are needed a change of scenery, or are they just really want to be here or whatever, that are soaking up one of those roster spots. Because you're only allowed to have 120 on a roster, period. You can have a bit more during the spring, but when fall rolls around at the 1st of August, you can have 105. When school kind of gets going, you can balloon it up to 120. That's it. And the 86th through 120th are better than we've ever seen before. And I think there's a payoff there at some level.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the what the future will hold for these guys. And obviously when you get things in place, as we know now, they don't just remain sedentary and in place. So you got to continue to re-recruit or whatever. But man, it's really interesting. And I would have to say, I think Texas Tech is in a uniquely favorable position. And it goes back to some of what we said at the beginning of the NIL era, in that, by all accounts, it really seemed like Tech was ahead of the game as far as being organized with whatever the efforts were going to be there. And kudos to those who are a part of that organization, because not everybody's been doing it and not acting like it's really paid huge dividends for you just yet, because your season accomplishments have still obviously been very modest, but hoping that eventually it certainly will. And you'd rather have it than not have it. Good stuff today, Chris, man. A lot of fun to talk about a win always. And hopefully we're going to be talking about another one of those after Saturday.
Yeah, man. I in the context of you being 5-13 in the league race, and technically I guess it was 5-14 because you dropped the game in Kansas City, the Big 12 tournament. I mean, and here you are sitting there 2-0. And again, you don't want to put cart before the horse or anything like that. It's still a long way to go, and there's going to be some adversity that you're going to deal with. But they're playing really good basketball right now, and hard to envision a better 2-game start to the conference than the way you won, much less that you won, but it's how you're doing it with these low turnover games and high shooting percentages and just pretty clean, drama-free basketball.
Fast start. We don't need no stinking fast start. I don't know. I might ask for another one again coming up on Saturday, man. Appreciate the time as always. Enjoyed it. And we'll be back on the other side to do it again tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Hope it is alive. We'll talk to you tomorrow, folks.
Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Appreciate you being out there. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.